Steve Van Sampson,
Curtis M Lawson,
Paul Christian Glenn, Joshua Rex, Raz, Rob Smale.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of The Clutch of Personalities with our special guest, Curtis M Lawson. We are here to discuss everything going on with him right now, which is a lot of stuff. He is an, boy, let's go through the list. Same before, he is an author, he is a publisher, he is an editor, he is a podcaster, he is a musician, and he is a comic book writer. And he is part of Weird House Press. And there's been a lot of stuff going on at Weird House right now. And with you, there's something new going on here with the Gallows
You're so
Whisper.
much better at StreamYard than I am.
Oh, dude, I've been practicing. I'm having fun with it.
Very
So
cool.
yeah, so I mean, there's like, oh hey, Curtis is doing a lot of stuff at Weird House, and gosh, Gallows Whisper shows up. So
yeah. So Gallows Whisper is the new imprint that Joe Morey asked me to. Well, he asked me to start my own imprint essentially there. I've been helping him put together some of the books, and I've worked on a few of them myself. Tales of Sweet Hollow, Beneath the Jack-o'-lantern Sky by Tyler James, The Descent by Joshua Rex, and most recently Laundry Legs by Rob Smales, which isn't out yet. So Joe said, I don't need to look over your shoulder while you're doing this. Why don't you start your own imprint and do like 4 to 6 books a year? So I said, yeah. And then I decided on the name Gallows Whisper. And what I'm really trying to do is look for stuff that's that honors and kind of pays tribute to the history of horror and weird fiction, but takes it in a new direction, whether it's in the way that it tells the narrative or the ideas that it explores, or I just want something that's a little bit cutting edge, but also really honors the tradition of the field.
oh, very nice. So kind of you can throw in some speculative there as long as you're giving it an homage to traditional.
Well, yeah,
Kind of.
as long as there's a horrific element, I want dark fiction, so it can be any sort of speculative, as long as it's. I guess what I'm really looking for is, weird fiction or horror fiction that as I said, it doesn't. I'm not looking for stuff that completely deconstructs the genre, but stuff that moves it forward, and definitely extra points if it has some real like heart or feeling behind it. I love stories where, whatever the trappings of the supernatural trappings or the narrative trappings are, you're really exploring a deeper idea, like, grief or resentment or something like that, as opposed to just there's a monster in the woods.
Right. You are fabulous at that, by the way. I've
Thank
got to
you.
say. How I just we're going through it. Hi everybody. Some of the things that we're going through tonight, he was just explaining Gallows Whisper, his imprint at Weird House. And some of the things are so long. Like I was talking about you on another podcast the other day, and I couldn't get out all of the Coffin Maker. I'm like, the Coffin Maker's book of you'll see it in a couple days. Watch it.
What podcast were you on?
That was when I was on Splash Pages, actually, over on the Dorkening Network.
Okay, nice.
So yeah, that was cool. But yeah, you've got so much great stuff out there. And where do people submit to Gallows Whisper? Are you taking submissions right now?
So not specifically to Gallows Whisper, but I'm the one who checks the Weird House Press submissions page, or submission email. So if I see
Okay.
something and it kind of catches my eye, but this year I'm only going to be doing 4 books, and one of them is pretty much confirmed, but the contracts aren't signed yet. So the other one seems like it's going to happen, which is I wish I could talk about it right now because it's with a very exciting author who I love. And so I really only have 2 more spots for this year. And I have been talking to some folks, but if I see something that really catches my eye in the submission email, it's something I'd consider. So if you go to the Weird House Press site, there's a submission tab there, and you can send stuff in that way.
Okay, and that should all be in the links that I've put up here. And hey guys, um, if you guys are here watching, make sure that you comment, because if you comment, you're entered in the drawing, and at the end of this, people are going to get some free stuff. We're giving
Yeah,
away stuff.
very
You're,
cool free stuff. I think so anyway.
yeah, there's the two books that we're going to talk about of yours right now are The Envious Nothing, and then the one that we're going to get the free stuff that everybody's looking forward to. This is the big one. Some people will be getting some e-copies of a couple of things. This will be the signed by you and you and Joshua Rex and Luke Spooner, correct?
Yes, signed by all 3 of us, and they're numbered. I believe it's limited to 150 on that one. It might be just 100. I think it's 150.
Yeah, it's just a gorgeous book.
Thank
Some of
you.
the artwork in there.
That's my favorite illustration in the whole book.
I
And that story gets the most whenever people flip through it or look at the table of contents. That's the title that everybody stops on. Don't get tattoos from strange girls at parties.
awesome. Yeah, it is really awesome. I've read this one and I absolutely love it. And I've been trying so hard. This is the Envious Nothing. Um, I I'm almost at the very end of it. I was reading it right up until I started hopping on. I was like, oh, and by the way, guys, my mic was broken and stuff, so we started just about a minute late because I had to switch out everything. But it is so bleak. It is the most beautiful book. Like, okay, can I kind of go into what I got off of it, and then you go
Yeah,
in and do
please,
some
please
explaining?
do.
Okay, so reading The Envious Nothing, I have like 8 pages of notes from what I got, and I'm not going to do that. I just needed to have them so I could look at stuff. But you draw from a lot of Norse mythology, I noticed, and some of it's not really obvious. Some of it is just dropped in there, little
Yes.
bits and pieces. And every single story, and with the title, obviously, The Envious Nothing, um, i- there's something going on. There's a focus on loneliness, on emptiness, on a vacuous nothing, something pulling in on unthings, I believe you use at one point in time.
Yep.
And it's crazy to read. There's so many stories and they're all so good and so different. And all the different ways that someone can be completely isolated, whether they're with people or without them. And it's just brilliant. It reminds me of like you took some Norse mythology, you took Tree's Lounge, and then you threw it all together with your personal flavor of just awesomeness in writing. He's a very descriptive author, by the way, and he uses some $10 words there. He's got some big sesquipedalian, that was another one I was gonna use for you.
um,
Hi,
is-
Jen.
there's an author, Jason Parent, who I'm friends with, and he often makes fun of me for my $10 words.
Yeah, I think I only had to look up one
All
when I was
right.
reading so far. It was the carnelian because
Okay.
was like I was like, "It's a color, it's a rock." Okay, got it. But
In
so yeah,
one of my old stories from my first collection, I used the term talking about this carousel horse, and I used the term nacreous mane, and a lot of people gave me a little bit of crap about that. They're like, "Really, nacreous mane?" But
I knew exactly what that was. Of course, I
all
played
right,
Magic the Gathering, so we had like Nacreus was an artifact. There was something
there you
like that.
go.
Um, so yeah, so that was my what I got overall. Like I said, oh my God, guys, there's so many stories. There's like the same story told from a bunch of different perspectives, or a story that floats between worlds. I don't want to give any real big spoilers on stuff, but everything just pulls you in, and there's just these hidden Easter eggs everywhere. So, what were you going out for? Was this a collection that you had in mind, or did you write specifically to have the empty, lonely feelings going through it all?
Well, it started off. I had the first story I wrote in there was the last story in the book, which is A Grave at the End of the World. And I wrote that. That was the first thing I wrote after I wrote Black Heart Boys Choir. And I there's a lot of I don't know if you got to that last story yet, but there's heavy
Nope,
Norse
that's
mythology stuff in there as well. And I I kind of focused on this figure of Angrboda, who's the wife of Loki in Norse mythology, and I've been really intrigued by that figure as like this mother of monsters, this kind of antagonist of the gods, of humanity, and like this mother of tragedy, but also of being this kind of source of wisdom, sometimes forbidden wisdom. So I thought that was really cool, and I wrote one story that was kind of centered around that idea, and then I wrote another story, which is the beginning story, You and I and the Envious Nothing, and it had similar concepts of this kind of idea of nothingness and what's beyond reality, or as we understand it. And then I got to the point of saying, let's explore this idea of nothing and see where we can go with it. And I chose to use Angrboda as like this symbol of the nothing, or this herald of the nothing. And she's represented a few different ways throughout the book, sometimes as a mother figure, sometimes as an antagonist. And yeah, I think that it was something I was very interested in, was the concept of nothing wanting to manifest into our world, nothing wanting to become something. And I guess that kind of started from the introduction of the novella I wrote with Doug Rinaldi, Those Who Go Forth into the Empty Place of Gods. Um, this There's an introduction by a mutual friend of ours who wrote this really, it starts off really weird, about a goldfish and all this stuff, but it gets into this really deep idea of nothing trying to manifest into the world through art, and that every idea that we have, every artistic idea, we're pulling out of the nothing and bringing nothing into the world. So that thought really stuck with me, and that was kind of the birth of these stories.
I really, really dug the poem with Angerboda at the beginning.
Thank you.
Hello.
Mhm.
And the now I was looking and I'm missing out. There's the insect, the wasp. There
The
is
poem.
that it's well. There's a sestina, which holy shit, you wrote a sestina and you wrote a good one. And
Thank
I'm
you.
like, I've only ever seen Neil Gaiman pull that off in my life. Um, but there's also some elements of wasp types of things. Is that something that I'm missing out on that's associated with her, or is that something you put
No,
together?
I was thinking of, just because she's the mother of monsters, so I was just thinking of monstrous kind of things, and I wanted to go beyond what is already, the Fenris wolf, or death, or serpents. I wanted to go a little bit deeper and say, I think that I'm going to get real off the reservation here and get like a little bit too philosophical, maybe, but if you think of the figure of Angrboda, who's this kind of like this witch figure, this giantess, this not just pre-Christian, but pre-Assyr goddess in a way, um, she's not going to be held by the same ideas of moral constraint that we recognize. So if she's the mother of monsters, who's to say that like she is not given birth to hundreds of these monsters, and not just with Loki, So I just try to think of all these different monstrous figures that she could have born into the world, and I think wasps are scary. So
Yeah, It turned out really well. I liked the use of the wasp through, but I was like Googling. I'm like, what did I miss? What did I miss? Oh my gosh. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's a lovely book, and I do love just it. I was telling Raz, who's usually on with me, but I left him out for tonight. He got part of the brain though, but you couldn't have written a book better for me with like if you tried to have it still be something that other people would enjoy reading as well. And hey, everybody, I see people coming in. Start talking in the comments because you have to type a comment so that you can get a chance to win free merch at the end of the night.
Yes,
So
win that free merch.
yes, you're gonna either get some signed stuff or you might just get some Kindle stuff, but it's gonna or ebook, however, whatever format you want. But that'll show you why you want to go and get a hold of the signed stuff for the hardback issues. They're so pretty. They've got such great art.
I feel very lucky to have had Weird House put out those beautiful editions. So
Oh yeah, everything they do here. I'm gonna put up the magazine that
oh yeah.
um this is something else that's coming out. And oh, how many people do you have in this one?
Oh, there's a
There's
lot. So we got
It's
out of control with
ridiculous.
this. It's about 100 pages more than the first issue, and um, the cost kind of got out of control, and I think we're selling it pretty much at cost at this point. But we won't have another issue this big, most likely. But yeah, it's huge. It's got Ramsey Campbell, Clay McLeod Chapman, Tim Curran, Richard Gavin, myself. I think James Chambers, Donald Tyson, and that's just the fiction. You know, there's more than that too. There's a piece on tabletop role-playing games beyond D&D. There's a piece by my friend Rob Kavjian from the band 1476. He wrote about the music of John Carpenter. Robert Otone did a piece on the Clock Tower game series. There's reviews of a bunch of Lovecraftian films and such. It's a pretty big issue. It has a lot of gorgeous artwork. There's an art showcase with the art of K.L. Turner. So it's you can technically get it on Amazon as of today, but it's going to be more expensive on Amazon than it is over at Weird House Press. In the first, I think, 50 people who order a copy on Weird House Press get it signed by me and Joe.
Oh, nice. So go on over. Get that on Weird House Press. There's a link. I promise. I put it down there. Yeah,
and the first issue is available too.
The first issue, actually, I will be giving out with every an e-copy of it.
Nice.
With all of the different giveaways as well, because that one's made it to the Kindle pricing. So
yes.
so I can afford that one. Okay, we have Friday with the Library in the Blue Box. Say that one. A lot of times, that is great, a story that makes you want to learn more about the world it is in. He does a lot of that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Oh, everything. Hey, Raz. We also, I wanted to discuss with you, Coffin Maker's Book of Dark Tales, which I loved the whole story behind this one. You and I have talked before, so I'm trying to I don't want to not bring up what we've talked about before because I want you to be able to talk about that again. But
sure.
I don't know how far back you want to go on things. So.
Oh, I'll talk about anything. Yeah.
We do that here. We just squirrel out and chit chat all night. So.
So the Coffin Maker, that was it was a cool book. Basically, Joshua Rex has a story in the Descent. I think it's called The Man on Fire, maybe. And there's a story in there which in that story there's a kid who's reading this book called The Coffin Maker's Book of Dark Tales, and it's supposed to be like almost like a scary stories to tell in the dark type of book. But Joe Morey over at Weird House Press, he got really into that name. He thought it was a really cool name, so he asked Josh and I to write the book from from Josh's story. And we wrote 6 stories each, and the story referenced in the Coffin Maker's book of Dark Tales, or at least one of them, is a story that Josh ended up writing for the book. So, and it was a lot of fun. We came up with this Coffin Maker character to act as like do these introductions and almost this Tales from the Crypt kind of way. And originally there was talk of doing it in a more comic book style with word bubbles and such, but it was a little bit too campy for how the stories ended up feeling when we were done with them. So we asked Luke to do kind of a floating text with the Coffin Maker and just a single image, and I think that worked out really well. The white backgrounds on everything is kind of stark, and I just think Luke got a very good aesthetic for it. I think it really stands out, the artwork. And like I said, I wrote 6 stories. Josh wrote 6 stories. One of mine is a Devil's Night story that didn't make it into my book Devil's Night, and I rewrote it to kind of, because I still liked the premise of it, so I rewrote it for this. One of them's kind of a love story, and then there's almost like a novelette at the end that I wrote, which is a little bit less. I mean, it's still horror. I would still call it horror, but it's very soft horror, I guess. There's not a lot of scary moments per se. It's more atmospheric. And Josh has some wonderful stories in there, like the New Governess. People have really loved that one, about this monstrous governess in Victorian times who comes to give these horrible children their comeuppance. And yeah, it was just a really fun book to make, and everybody worked really hard on it, and I think the hardcover came out gorgeous. There's this really nice stamping on the cover. Like if you take off the dust jacket, there's this really nice stamping on the cover with this copper coffin, and yeah, I'm very proud of it. So.
Oh yeah, I got that one. Here's that picture.
Yep, you can see it there. Yep, in that picture, the "Don't get tattoos from strange girls at parties." That actually was kind of born from a poem in the Envious Nothing. There's a poem in there called "She Kills Dying Monsters," I think it was called, and it was about this tattoo artist who hunts down dying monsters.
She hunts dying monsters. I have
yes.
the table.
You'd think I would remember the name of my own poem, but
I never
so that the figure from that poem is not the main character of that story, but she's kind of be the impetus for how the story comes about. So it was kind of cool to do something that tied in with that. And even the first, I think the first story I have in there is the Black Book of Nothings, which I was still kind of in that Envious Nothing mode when I wrote that. It could have fit into that Envious Nothing kind of vibe.
Yeah. The way you two write together, though, you had the common theme going, and it worked together seamlessly. Like you can tell it's different authors, but you two work well together.
Yeah, well, I'm good friends with Josh, and I think we have a lot of similar thoughts on art and writing and life. So,
and you mentioned frequently, and he's part of the whole Weird House crew. The editor, Joshi.
So he does some work. I wouldn't say he's part of like the Weird House crew per se, but he does do some work for Weird House. He's more involved with Hippocampus Press.
Okay.
Which he has a deeper connection with them, but he has done what he does with Weird House is mostly reprint collections of classic authors. So we just did one from Everil Worrell, which was a woman who wrote in the classic Weird Tales era. She wrote from like I think the 20s or 30s up through like the 50s or 60s, and she was one of the few real successful pulp writers, female pulp writers of that time, and she'd never had her work collected into a single book. So we just published that, and Joshi had put that together, and he had done Far Below by Robert Barber Johnson and a couple volumes from Carl Jacobi. So that's the kind of stuff that he's been doing for Weird House, and I think it's really important for us to, because we're having some success, to take that success and the opportunity that we have to promote these kind of lesser known authors from that period, because there's so many great stories from back then that kind of get lost and forgotten. And everybody knows Lovecraft, everybody knows Robert E. Howard, but a lot of these other people, they just kind of get lost in the sands of time. And I think if you have the opportunity, if you're really committed to the field and you have the means and the opportunity, I feel like it's your duty to kind of secure the past.
Yeah. And it's a sense, once something goes into public domain, a lot of people just jump on it, and there are 500,000 versions of the complete works of Edgar Allan Poe, H.P.
Sure.
Lovecraft. Um, I absolutely did not mean to miss your comment there, East Coast Honors. Got out of the way. Curtis, did you get started in Dark Tales, or did you move into the dark as your path went forward? And you had a very interesting way of getting into the field, I think, in my opinion.
So, I mean, everything I've written has always been kind of dark, going back to when I was a musician. So I played in metal and punk bands and black metal bands as a kid, up to when I was like 25 or so. So there was always the kind of dark and horror element of that. And then when I was like 25, I decided I wanted to stop playing in bands because I hated working that closely with other people, and it was very stressful on my friendships and such. And honestly, I wasn't very good at it. Um, so I started writing, and I did a little bit in short stories. But I mainly focused on comics. I did comics for about 10 years, largely unsuccessful. I had a few graphic novels, a few standalone comics, and some web comics and such, but nothing that ever really caught on. And I ran out of money, and I had a young child, and I couldn't keep paying artists, so I decided to write a novel because I didn't have to pay for sequential art and that. And I hired an editor, and she happened to be starting her own imprint over at Permuted Press, and she offered me a book deal, and I just kind of fell into it. And I said, well, I guess this is what I do now. But even when I was doing comics, even when I was doing superhero comics, it was always really dark, like anti-hero stuff. There was always like dark crime, noir elements, horror elements. Most of what I've written is supernatural. I had a sci-fi comic or web comic that I did called Divus Morte that I never finished, and that was still, it was like space opera, but there were definitely like horror-y elements in it. So it's just kind of what I always naturally gravitate to. I think probably just because of what I grew up listening to and reading and watching. And Jesse Gilbert, did you really get it a tattoo from a strange girl at a party?
Raz, did you do it? Did you do it? It sounds like something Raz would do.
I have a friend of mine that lives in Florida, and she owns a tattoo party and tattoo parlor. Sorry, and she commented that she's the strange girl who at parties giving tattoos.
I'm the strange girl, but I already have my head tattoos. I can
Yeah,
I figured out how to show them off. I went with my
nice.
Norse theme tonight because of the
I saw.
yeah, I've got myself set up finally before I was all on blank walls, and the party upstairs quit. I'm very happy
That's
about
pretty good.
that.
I
Yeah.
actually redid my basement area where I record for my podcast, and like I had it all nice looking and everything, but the heat's out down there right now, so I was like, I'm not going to sit in the cold and do this tonight. I'll just use these
Yeah.
gray walls.
Yeah, be comfortable. Don't be sitting around freezing. It's terrible. Yeah, I had hopefully my furnace will stay off. I keep it pretty cool in here, but
Mhm.
at least my furnace got fixed. It used to do this thing where it sounded like I had a drummer locked in a closet somewhere.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's no fun.
No, not really.
Mhm.
Um, so there's been some other stuff going on over with Weird House too. I don't know if you wanted to talk about that or not.
Which
With
stuff?
uh, isn't Joe and his son are isn't
So,
Dark Region?
yeah, so Joe's son, Chris Morey, he owns Dark Regions, and the companies aren't merging or anything like that, but they are kind of cooperating.
Okay.
And essentially we're just we're trying to help each other in some different ways. Joe's working on some of the Dark Regions books. There's some stuff that they've been trying to catch up on, and Joe's just really good at making books. So Joe jumped in and he's helping Chris with that a little bit, and Chris has been offering some advice about, on the marketing end of things, or um, you know with printing and distribution, things like that. So they've been working a little bit more closely. We've run a few promotions together, and there's Dark Regions is now distributing Weird House books, and there's going to be a few joint ventures, like Karnaki Starry Wisdom by William Meikle. The deluxe edition came out from Dark Regions, but Weird House is doing the paperback. And I think Wolf Hunt 3 by Jeff Strand, which was just announced. That's a joint venture between Dark Regions and Weird House. So yeah, it's been pretty good. And then Joe and I have been trying to help with getting authors for Dark Regions anthology. So it's more of a cooperation thing at this point. I don't think
Okay.
the companies are going to become one, but it's just nice that father and son can be working a little bit more closely together. And it's nice for me to be part of, like a small family business and be working closely with people like that. I prefer that than to be working, I mean, obviously I wouldn't turn down a job at like Tor or something like that, but there's something to be said for like when you are intimately involved with the people who are making all these decisions and you have their ear.
Yeah, I like seeing that when I go to the website and it's like, see our authors, meet them and talk. And, it's not
Yeah.
like, oh, 400 people each get a paragraph. No, you get a whole page and you get to learn about it and
Yeah.
learn about the people who are writing what you like. And I do right over there. It's too far away for me to reach it. I did order from Dark Regions the American Gods omnibus.
Oh, nice.
So that was kind of cool for me. I was like, oh my God, I
Yeah.
need that. I
Yeah.
need
They,
that.
they have some, they
But
have some cool stuff that they sell. And Dark Regions is, I mean, they have some original books coming out, but a lot of what Chris does is, like almost like online retail stuff from other publishers, or he'll do these special editions from other publishers. Like I think he's doing a special edition of Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay, but it's just a limited run of this deluxe edition or whatever.
and you saw my post the other day. I got my yeah, I know we already gone over Black Heart Boys Club on a different podcast, but the Black Heart Boys Choir on a
Wire.
different podcast. So the club. Um, but I think there might be a link if in there to the autograph version that you're donating the proceeds to UNICEF.
Yep.
Which if you guys haven't read that book, you have to. It's beautiful. It's oh, you can tell he's a musician because, and I know you told me that you had to study a couple extra things because wasn't quite your niche for it,
Sure.
but it's gorgeous. It if you've been that kid in high school ever, or if you, oh, I don't want to give any spoilers for your stuff. I want everybody to be so excited about it, but it goes into glorious darkness and isolation and music and demons, and it just all wraps together like a poem, you know, or like a
Thank you very
song,
much.
I guess.
Well, I kind of try to structure it in a musical way, and um, in is such as I did repeating phrases. There's certain points at where I repeat certain sentences or even whole paragraphs, at different points during the book, or I might repeat a paragraph and change a few words in it, and that was supposed to have a musical element of, the repetition of like a refrain in music or something like that. And there's one chapter which I structured, and I'm sure no one has picked up on this, but there's one chapter that I structured in my head as like 3/4 timing, like a waltz. This happens, so something bad happens to Lucian. An adult, an adult fails him, and then in the next scene, he gets driven towards violence again, and then something out, and it just repeats that kind of thing. So I think every on like what would be the second beat, so to speak, he's always meeting with his counselor at school. So that section of the book is like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and the book itself is broken up into movements. And each one I kind of wrote with a different time signature in mind. And once again, this is just nerdy stuff I did that I don't expect anyone else to pick up on. But if it came across like a song, that's kind of cool. So,
but it's neat to learn that. But I love you sharing these things with me. Like we were the first ones that you told what the Academy was about too. When I was
yes,
with James, that was really awesome.
yeah.
So I didn't pull up a picture of that one, guys, but I will get one up here before. And I did grab a graphic of that real quick.
There you go.
There are multiple covers. This is the hardback edition.
Yes.
That you can order that will proceeds to UNICEF, and it's gorgeously illustrated as well. You have great selections, and I suppose coming with the comic book background, it helps because you know exactly what you want. You know what color palettes you want, what type of design and stuff.
So Luke Spooner did that book. He did Devil's Night, and he did Coffin Maker's Book of Dark Tales. And with Blackheart Boys Choir, I had already had Luke do the original cover when I self-published it. So when we had him do this, I just kind of let him run with it because I trust him as an artist implicitly. And but then with the Coffin Maker, you talked about the color palettes. One of the things that, because Josh has an artistic background too, Joshua Rex. He used to be a painter, and so we talked a lot about color palettes, and we talked to other artist friends of ours, and we came up with, we wanted to do a limited color palette. So if you look at any of those illustrations in the Coffin Maker's Book of Dark Tales, it's all black, gray, brown, and purple, and there's not really any other colors but that. And that was because I forget the name of the book. There was some book that Josh really liked as a kid who had this limited color palette, and it was like this almost like turquoisey color and yellow and black and white. So yeah, as you said, coming from a visual art kind of background, something with visual storytelling, I do think that it helps with writing and creating nice books in really beneficial ways, both for the writing itself and for creating the final product. A lot of people have said I have a more cinematic approach to writing, and I credit that to doing comics for so long.
I can very much see that because you feel more, you're very immersive, and yeah, I can always see what's going on in my head. And I mean, you can with some people's writing, but some it's flat, but yours is really
Sure.
draws you in, lets you see everything. And
Absolutely.
sometimes it's scary stuff. I was going through all this and I had a couple of cringe moments actually on the Envious Nothing. There was the what was it called? The Secrets of the Forbidden Katha.
Okay.
And oh my goodness. It was a lovely story and I enjoyed every part of it, but it got so dark. It was probably about the goriest you got, I think.
Yeah, there's some body horror in there,
But it just me it's little things like that. Like I can handle somebody being cleaved into pieces and shredded, but the more intimate, close body horror is just kind of like, oh, gives me shivers.
Yeah, that one I had ruptured my bicep at work, and it partially ruptured my bicep, and there was a whole thing with the doctors not catching it, blah blah blah, and I couldn't get surgery. It was a whole thing, but I was really depressed about it for a while, and I was at the point in time I'd been really into working out. I was in the best shape I'd ever been in. I was doing like 3 hours a day at the gym, and then like I ruptured my bicep, and all of I was like dead in the water. So I got really depressed about it, and that's why I wrote that story. It was, I just started, and like obviously it's vastly exaggerated from what I was going through. That the gentleman in that story was going through much worse, but it was this sense of kind of loss of control over my body, you know, and this loss of strength and such like that. So that one was kind of a personal story to me, which is maybe why I went a little bit more visceral with it.
Yeah, I liked the part when you were talking about it, it wouldn't have hurt so much if you hadn't known, or if he hadn't known what it was like to be in that great of shape. Like if he'd never taken
Yes,
the time to work on his body, then he wouldn't mind as much. But
exactly. Yeah.
once
Yeah.
you
And
get something, it hurts when it's taken away.
absolutely. Yeah. Um, and, you know, I've always been kind of a cerebral guy. Like I've been artsy and intellectual, and I've always put value on the intellectual over the physical. And then, like I said, I got into shape really for the first time in my life, in the kind of shape that I'd like to be. And I felt stronger than I ever had. And then, like, to suddenly go to the point where I couldn't lift up 5 pounds with my arm, it was really, it was very frustrating, and very depressing. So
It's it's sad the things that we have to go through so that we can write.
yeah.
And Raz, I'm sorry I'm slow cutting veggies while I'm here. Okay, cut to veggies. They're good for you as long as you eat them later. And speaking of ways to not get in shape, you recently were working on a game.
Yes. Um, so yeah, I've been writing for Astro Inferno, which is a tabletop RPG. I think they're calling it Beyond Grimdark, Post Hell, and yeah, it's a very cool concept. I had actually interviewed the guy Anta who is behind the game. I interviewed him on my podcast, and we kind of clicked and started talking. And he asked me to write for the game. And I started off just writing little snippets. I don't know how familiar you are with like tabletop RPG books, but a lot of times they'll have these, just like a paragraph or maybe a few sentences of flavor text above different sections. So I started off writing those. I think I wrote like 50 of those for him. And then he started asking me to write chapters on these things. So the game itself it's a really interesting but kind of confusing concept. Um, Basically, sometime in the future, there's this nanotech kind of stuff that something happens, and the whole physical universe ends up dissolving or whatnot, and it's called the regenesis. And at this same point in time, Satan leaves hell. He just up and goes. Um, and now you have this weird post post Satan hell where he's just gone. You don't know where he went. Hell's in chaos, and the physical world has ceased to exist. But there are some human beings that basically merged into this new, you know, out of the physical universe into what is called fracture, which is what's left of hell, and the dreamlands and everything from mythology and such like that is all in this kind of mishmash place called fracture. So you have gods and demons and corrupted, you know, tortured souls, but you also have like astronauts that were up in space when the regenesis happened, or you know, there's instances in the future, there's, you know, like cyborg kind of things, and like nanotech beings and such. So it's this weird sci-fi horror mashup. And the it's got a lot of interesting ideas behind it, where it's in this kind of post hell universe thing. They have something called the what does he call it? It's not the unorder. It's something like that. The unlaw, where essentially everything is kind of chaotic and random stuff can just kind of happen. And there's game mechanics that kind of work into that, where you can, as a player, you can spend points and such to say, hey, like, okay, say you're in a fight in some city, and you'll be like, hey, there's a door in that building over there, and I'm going to do that. So essentially you can manifest a door in there, like through the unlaw. And it's but it's a really dark world, and which is kind of my thing. So but because it is this mashup of all these different things, there's all these different mythologies and actual, like Judeo-Christian hell kind of stuff. I was able to I got to write a chapter on Carcosa and from the King in Yellow. That was really cool.
Nice.
I got to write a chapter about the Abyss, and earlier today I wrote one about the Citadel, which is the first city and the first level of hell from Dante's Inferno. So yeah, it's just been very cool. I think it's gonna like the game itself is beautiful. Like the book is gorgeous from what I've seen, and they got a lot of money on Kickstarter for it, and I hope it's successful because it's a lot of fun, and the system's fairly straightforward, but it's a little bit more. It's a little bit unique. It's not quite like a D20 system, and yeah, I just think it's a fun game with a really unique world, and I hope people dig it.
I think it sounds really in depth, and I like that. I love lore,
Yeah.
especially when it's coming from stuff that you can check out. And one of the other things that I thought was really cool about this is that, at least on the Kickstarter page, they made their own tarot.
Yes.
So that is something you can actually get if you go for the game.
Yeah.
And we applaud Dante content here. Yes, yes, we are all about hell here.
Yeah,
It
it was fun to be able to delve into that, and yeah, they've really done some cool stuff like the tarot, and yeah, like I said, the artwork is really gorgeous, and it was just cool to be able to be part of building that lore. As you said, I really like lore, and I've been playing tabletop RPG since I was like 10 years old, so it's kind of like a bucket list thing to be able to work on one of those. It's something I always wanted to do.
So what was your game back in the day?
I mean,
Or still in the day?
I started playing Dungeons and Dragons. That was like the original thing, but I've played a lot of tabletops. Um, and my favorite one to actually play all around was probably Aberrant, which is a superhero game that White Wolf put out. And I really enjoyed running Aberrant games as the game master. And my favorite game world was probably Rifts, which I hated the system for, but I just thought it was an incredible world. And it goes into it. I mean, I guess you can kind of see that with Astro Inferno. Rifts was this kind of mishmash world where all these rifts opened up in space and time. So you're on Earth, but you have cowboys and samurais and demons and cyborgs. And but I thought it was even with all that stuff, and it almost seems like too much. I thought they did a really good job of developing the world. You have this kind of bad guy faction there. I forget the name of them, but they were essentially like, far future Nazi kind of statist guys, and they hated anyone who wasn't human, who had psychic powers, who used magic or whatever. So like if you weren't strictly like a human, you weren't allowed in these kind of enclaves, and they'd hunt down magic users and stuff. And the way they developed the world with that and the aesthetic that they used with it, it was just it was pretty cool. I really dug it, but the system was garbage. So
Okay, so favorite D&D edition.
I'm an old man. I like second, but I will say that 3.5 had a lot of advantages. There was a lot. I think 3.5 is probably a superior system, but most of my gaming life was spent on second edition, and I knew the books inside and out. And I will take this to my grave. I like Thaco, and I think that it gives you a solid range for being able to hit. One of my problems with some of the later systems is theoretically you could just get pluses forever. And within Thaco, you have this finite amount of to hit or to defend or whatnot. So, and I always thought it was silly where people get upset about, negative numbers. They're like, I don't want to figure out, I don't want to do integers. Like,
I can't math.
yeah. So, but second edition is my favorite, but I think 3.5 is probably all around better.
Okay, real. We are also all about Dante. He, however, understands nothing being said on this show. I think Dante's a pet. I hope it's not a baby, because then I'm bad. But pet the baby. Pet the baby. Remember, everybody, put up some comments because we're gonna have a drawing at the end of this.
And it's
I got some stuff to
the
give
Coffee
out.
Maker's a really beautiful book, so you don't want to miss it.
It's gorgeous, and you're gonna get so much content from some of the E stuff too that it's gonna make you go, "Oh God, I need to check out Weird House and some more Curtis because he's a 3-year-old." Hi, Dante. Sorry. Didn't mean to go over you there. I'm with you though on 3.5 being pretty much the easiest. The round of posting. Thank you.
I think that the thing with 3.5 too is I think that it opened up a little bit more versatility with things like feats and as a player and as a DM for second edition, like I remember the first time I ever played, and it was like just basic D&D. It wasn't advanced, It was like the black box that came with Zanzer Tem's dungeon or whatever. And the first game I ever ran, somebody was like, "Well, I pick up a fork off that table and I stab the wolf with it or whatever." I'm looking through the rules. I'm like, I don't know what to do for this. So I think by adding things like feats, it allowed you to do some of it gave you rules for some of the stuff that you wanted to do in second edition, where the DM kind of had to make it up off the top of his head. So,
okay, yeah, I have seen your children. I'm sorry. I don't get names well, and we're working on where are we going? We're doing a D&D. It's going to be the PBDC D&D, something
it's
like
a lot of
that.
letters.
Yeah, but we're doing it in 3.5.
Is that for
And
me, the cons in 2023, or is that for you?
that's for you
That's for
because
me.
they are the East Coasters,
Okay.
and I'm in Nebraska.
There we go. Well, I was at one I was at Crawling Chaos Con in at the Plain Ridge Casino in Massachusetts yesterday. I'm going to try to there's a Monster Expo in Massachusetts in April that I'm going to try to do, and that's all we have planned at the moment. I just did a bunch of them though. I did BosCon in Boston. I was at Necronomicon last August. I'll probably be at Nikon this summer. I wanted to do StokerCon, but it's the same weekend as my son's birthday, and I'm planning on doing more, but I don't have them set in stone yet.
That's got to be rough. StokerCon, kid. Yeah, the kid's got to
Yeah,
win.
and
But
it's in Philadelphia, I think, or yeah, I think it's in Philadelphia this year. So it's like technically in driving distance. I wouldn't have to fly or anything, but the kid's got to win.
I mean, yeah, kids got to win because kids are cool. Family first when it comes to life and all that.
Yeah.
I was. I want to stay on D&D for a minute because once you start talking about D&D, you can't stop talking about D&D.
Sure.
But I did like the system for 3.5, but the one thing I missed from 2 is how they nerfed a lot of the spells because I was all about being the mage and stuff, and then I remember like web was the one that really pissed me off because in second ed we walked into a room in the Underdark and Yvard's black tentacles were coming from the ceiling everywhere, and it was like web once
Yeah.
and you were done. And they were just like, "Oh." And the 3.5, it's like, "Oh no, it's like this big and it
Yeah.
doesn't do
Well,
anything."
that
And
was like a go-to move. It was always like web and then some fire spell, like
web, grease, fire, done.
yeah.
You killed
Um,
everything or it slid into it.
that was one of my big problems. So I remember when Fourth came out, and my big problem with Fourth was there was really no utility spells. Fourth, they kind of tried to make it into WoW as a tabletop in a lot of ways, and you didn't have spells like Rope Trick or things like that. It was just all kind of combat based things, and I liked being able to use magic in clever ways, or being able to have my players use magic in clever ways. But I feel like in fourth edition they just really tried to make it into a video game, and it lost a lot because of that.
Well, and then fifth, they had that. I don't remember if it was also in fourth, but it was like you shifted instead of moved, and you couldn't, it got even more like, oh, you can do these things X many times a day, but it's not like you memorize a bunch of spells or have a bunch of slots for things. It was just like you pick each action and then, okay, if you do it, that's the only time you can do that today. You can do this once every different combat session or something. And they really just dumbed it down to the point where it was unplayable for people who like you like Thaco and remember all of that. I always called it that.
I haven't played a lot of fifth, but from what I've gone through with it, I think I like it better than fourth, but I still think that I guess it seems like it's probably better as a gateway system. Like if you've never played anything before, if you're kind of a casual player, I imagine because you say you felt like it was dumbed down or whatnot, and I think that makes it a little bit easier for a casual player who's maybe didn't get into it as a kid, to get into it, but it makes it not quite as fun for someone who's a veteran who's been playing these games for a while.
Yeah.
And I think they're trying to cater to a new audience because of things like Critical Role and all those kind of games. You have a lot of people, this influx of people, and because of the pandemic, there's a huge influx of people playing D&D and tabletop games. So I think the business model is like, let's make it simple, let's make it accessible, instead of the old joke of it being like Math the game.
Yeah, it was, but I've always liked math, so I never had a
Yeah,
problem
right.
with
Me
it.
too.
It's like I can
Um,
do all that.
did you ever watch Gravity Falls, the cartoon on Disney?
I I don't think so.
So it was I don't know. My son was really big into it. It's actually like an incredible piece of weird fiction. It was really really incredible. Only 2 seasons, and it's a near perfect show. It was really surprising. But there's a D&D episode, and there's one point where the uncle is talking about, he's asking the nephew about it. He's like, "Oh, is that game that's supposed to be about wizards and dragons, but it's really just math and graph paper?" But
It's not a game unless there's a pizza stain on the piece of paper that you had to go down to the. I literally once spent like 2 hours with one of my friends doing specialized 3.5 sheets. You know how they had the portfolio ones?
yeah.
Well, we just made them because we knew we'd have hybrid characters that we would eventually need to keep leveling up and would get eraser burns on the paper and stuff. So we were making hundreds of copies and organizing all these folios and stuff. And we're dressed just total goth. And I helped like 3 different people use the copy machines because they kept coming up and asking me like I was an employee, like, "Oh, could you show me how to do this?" "Oh, yeah." I mean, the people with the blue shirts with the polos with the logo on them are standing right there. But why not? I mean, I'm here. The only one I had to turn on the guy who asked where the bathroom was, but
Yeah.
we spent so much time. It's just it's not real unless you have all that feel. But we're gonna try to be doing this on Twitch, and maybe you can join us sometime. Try
Yeah,
to, if you'd like to. Where it's
that'd
gonna
be
become
fun.
a thing, but we'll be doing it all live playing, and hopefully we're gonna try to do some really. We have some really neat ideas for things that are twitchable. um, East Coast Hunters. I sat in with my son and his friends, and I had to walk out. It has changed so much, or they've changed it so much. Yeah, they just they kind of lost the plot a bit. They made it so it wasn't. Yeah, it's the short attention span, the no math, the just no creativity. You don't spend all the time going into feats and character backgrounds. I always made my characters I used to DM quite a bit, and I would make everybody sit down and do it was called campfire time, and we would like get, was when the pizza or whatever we got to eat came in, and you had to sit around but stay in character the entire time and just have a time where you chatted and really role played your character instead of just murder hoboing or rolling dice or whatever. It it was the not dice stuff that was going on. So that's just something I really always enjoyed about the game. Was we were trying to teach it's a fun game to teach little ones if you can, because it if you stay in the lower editions, it does help them with math, but also if you make them tell a story and come up with something. My friends had my friend had 3 little girls, and we were working with them, and it was like, "Oh, what do you wanna be?" "I wanna be a princess." "I wanna be an ogre," and it's just, "Yeah, do it. Let's get this going," you know?
Yep.
So much fun to have their little minds working and stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
have you started your son in on anything?
Yeah, so I mean, I did early on. We used to play like kind of randomly. For a little while we were playing. A couple of years ago we would play as a family like every Sunday or something. That was a little bit short-lived. Um, but he started playing with his friends online, I don't know, maybe a year or so ago, and he enjoys it a lot, but I think that he hasn't played as much because it's hard for him to uh, like anybody who's ever done a gaming group knows this, like trying to get everybody together on the right at the same time on the same day. Um, so that's been a little bit frustrating for him, I think. But yeah, he was playing with his friends for a while, and it's interesting because he's 14. I think he started doing this when he was like 13 with his friends, and as you start getting older and you play differently, you want different things out of the game. Your stories become more advanced, a little bit more sophisticated. But he comes to me after like the first game that he played, and he's like, "We murdered like 900 people," and it's just kind of fun to like think back to just the excitement of just the just rolling dice and killing things over and over again when you were like 12, 13 years old. And it's interesting seeing because he started DMing, so it's interesting seeing him approach the storytelling elements of it and how to wrangle people because that's probably the biggest challenge in running a game is wrangling your players, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
anticipating what they're going to do and how they're going to derail your story and how you're going to keep it on the rails. Um,
And there's this to the east and this to the west, and somebody's got a poster up that's advertising something for the south. We're gonna go north then.
yeah,
That's what we're gonna do. We're
well,
gonna
I always just let people think, be like, "Oh, which way do you go?" And no, this way. I'm like, no, whatever way they pick, it's going to lead to the place I planned. Like,
Oh, look what just magically appeared here. Yeah.
so
You're a writer when you're like, it takes you longer to write up the thing than it takes them to play the game
yeah.
because especially players that are picky, they fight over everything, and it's just like, oh my god, are we never gonna get out of here? But I'm the person who like every kobold gets rolled, and it's gonna talk about and his son John is locked up in the cell while he's struggling away in the mines. I'm horrible. I make people quit playing because I get them so depressed.
Oh,
So, what else I'm gonna hop out of that,
yeah,
sorry, I just kinda squirreled into D&D and then I'll never ever stop.
sure.
What else what are you working on right now? What do you have coming up? You said the con plans and you got
Yeah,
the Gallows Whisper and
yeah. So I'm doing a lot of stuff for Weird House with I'm editing the magazine and I'm doing that with Joe, and then I have the Gallows Whisper stuff that I'm doing. Plus, I do other behind the scenes stuff for Weird House. I do the marketing and basically whatever Joe's asking me to do. But as far as writing, I have a um, I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about this. We'll find out. I have uh, a book in the Dark Tide series from Crystal Lake coming out. It's so they've been doing these Dark Tides books with 3 authors, each writing a novella, and there's kind of a theme to it. So I have a Dark Tides book coming out from Crystal Lake that's me, Jason Parent, and William Meikle. And then there's I always avoid saying this because it's a Lovecraftian term that I don't know how to pronounce. Because it's not a real word. And but a few years ago, Journal Stone put out this book called The Abyssal Plane, and it's the relay cycle. Is that how you say it? I don't know.
I I have heard that pronounced so many different ways, and I just because I made it fit in a limerick once,
All
I called
right.
it. I use Aurelia.
Okay. Well, there's this book where essentially William Holloway came up with this concept of this Lovecraftian apocalypse, this specific vision of one, and all the stories are tied around that and the rules that he had for it and how it worked. And he's doing a second one that's coming out from Journal Stone, and I have a story in there, a novella in there, and both of those should be coming out this year. And I'm hoping that I'm going to have a book from Weird House. I have a novella that I've been working on for a while, and I keep getting distracted with other things. And I tried to do it as a serial for a little bit, but I'm not very good at keeping up with the serial, so I'm not doing that anymore. But it's called Couch Surfing Through the 12 Chambers of Hell, and
Okay.
it's about an aging rock star who's lost his family, and he goes on this trip down Route 50, which is like the loneliest road in America. It's nicknamed, and it's broken up by months, and each one is kind of mirrors one of the hours of the Egyptian afterlife. So it's
Wow.
this kind of journey of like Americana and mythology, with this guy trying to cope with the loss of his wife and child, and get through that grief and be able to live again or not, you know. So hopefully that'll be out this year too.
I like how you always have something underlying in your stories, and that's what you look for because I've seen too much where there is no character development. There is only the this is scary, this is creepy plot. There's no mind behind it. There's nothing else going on. But you always have like this, the inner turmoil and stuff and what everybody's going through.
Yeah, I
And
mean that's important to me. That's the main reason I like to write, is to explore those kind of themes.
he is well read and he uses big words.
I do.
He's good at them. But it keeps the rest of us on our toes so we can keep up with what you're writing about.
um, that one's been really fun too, because I had this idea for a comic about the Pharaoh Akhenaten in my head for forever, like for decades. Um, and the more I thought about it, the more the story I wanted to tell didn't really work. Um, but I was able to take a lot of the things I wanted to do with that and put it into couch surfing through the 12 chambers of hell. And it was cool to be able to jump into a different kind of mythology too, because I've been so focused on Norse. I mean, that's where my primary interest lies. But I've been so focused on putting Norse stuff into my writing. Even my first novel, The Devoured, is heavily steeped in Norse mythology. So it's kind of cool to be able to jump into something different in a different myth cycle and really explore that.
Cool. I like the Egyptian stuff. You have you read pardon me, Gaiman's American Gods?
Yeah,
Have you?
it's one of my favorite books ever. So yeah.
So are I don't know if Route 50 goes through they have the Nile passage basically that he takes
Yeah, I don't.
into it.
I'm honestly, I haven't read it in. It's been probably almost 20 years since I've read it, but um,
Okay.
So I don't remember the details of those sort of things, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Oh, it's just one of the sections of the United States, like when Shadow's going up from wherever they stash him off with uh, the guy with the cars.
Yep.
My
No,
memory's great.
I
But
remember
he goes
this
down and
I remember the
he goes
section
to
you're
like
talking about. I
Cairo
just
and
don't remember where it was geographically.
okay, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that, but I love all the different mythologies and being able to put in the Egyptian stuff is because that's also super intricate. I've always been y- my doctor, even my neurologist, I've been going to raw neurological for
Oh,
over
nice.
20 years now. Yeah, he's like, Shh, we don't say that. We don't let them know how old we are. But his name is Rich. His initials are RA, but he actually has the Eye of Horus or the Eye of Ra as his symbol.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, so most people just think
Yeah.
he's named his business after himself. But I was like, is that? And he's like, yeah.
That's
You're
neat.
the only one who's ever figured it out.
Um, can I get nerdy about Egyptian mythology for a second?
You can get
Yeah.
nerdy about
All right.
Egyptian mythology for a couple seconds. I mean,
So one of the things when I was kind of doing the layout or the outline for couch surfing is if you look at Egyptian mythology, like Egypt was like it went on for like thousands of years. You know what I mean? So you're not really looking at one culture. You're looking at it multiple cultures that kind of evolved out of each other over time. And if you think of the way that even you think of the way Christianity has changed and evolved over 2,000 years, and like so the Egyptian religion, it's not this you can't just look it up and be like have all the answers like this is how things went because it's different over time. The gods served different purposes. The concept of the afterlife was different at different periods. So I had to really nail down what I wanted to take from that. And do I want to use the duat perception of the afterlife and of hell, or do you go to an older perception of it? And there are things I wanted to do from when I went into it that I realized I couldn't stay consistent because they were from, one thing happened was the way it was perceived 1,000 years prior to this other thing. So I really had to nail down the version of the mythology I wanted to use. And that was really exciting for me to go in and kind of decide for the book what was real, so to speak. Um, and one of the things that I found really interesting is, we generally think of the god Set as this god of evil, and Set is an antagonist of the pharaoh going through the afterlife. He's and but Set was originally a storm god, and he was antagonistic to a certain point, but he also was like a protector in the afterlife. He was there to kill Apep, or to keep Apep the serpent back. And at some point in time, I forget who it was, but someone invaded Egypt, took over. There was this foreign dynasty for X amount of years, and their primary god that they chose was Set. And when they were ousted, everybody that's when Set got turned into this real, like almost like satanic figure, because
mhm.
he was associated with this invasive regime. So there's a point in there where it talks about Set, essentially Set and Apep in some form, and Apep telling Set that someday he's going to devour him and like take everything that he is, which is kind of what happened, because Set essentially takes on the role of Apep later on in the timeline. So, anyways, yeah, I got really nerdy into that part of it of how the religion evolved over thousands of years.
Oh yeah, when you're trying to get everything exactly right, like I'm working on a story now that's a Lovecraftian bit.
Mhm.
with here. Let's try to say the names, shall
Yeah.
we? Nyarlathotep. How do
That
you say
sounds
it?
right to me. Yeah, Nyarlathotep. Yeah.
Yeah, so I have Nyarlathotep going into Egypt and writing a book on the flayed skins of humans and stuff, but I had to set it up so that everything worked out so it would be a very specific dialect of Coptic.
Yep.
And so it's like, okay, we have to study what time in history, who was where, which cities still stood and had people in them. Because if you're going up and down from the Delta and stuff, okay, well, they absolutely destroyed this one so that they could build this one. So what's left? And man, it had to be rough to be an Egyptian
Yeah.
because they were just constantly tearing there's not a lot to build with, and what you do have you're taking from other cities, so it's just like, okay, we're moving the town.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of that. It shows, I don't know, an incredible amount of fortitude and planning and will. Um, in so Akhenaten, he, for political slash religious reasons, he decided to start a new capital, and he built it in the middle of nowhere, like way out in the desert. And the amount of time and work and money that must have went into this of building a new capital over the course of a few years, when you don't have machinery, you don't have concrete, you know, it's just
You have
such a
slaves and
wild
water.
endeavor. Yeah, it was such a wild endeavor, and it really makes you think about what humanity is capable of. But it's kind of mind blowing.
Yeah, when we go in and compare what really strikes me though is so many religions um all have the exact same aspects regardless of where they're from.
Yep.
You could be the same archetypes, I guess, would be the easiest way to put it.
Yeah.
But
Well,
s- go ahead.
oh no, I was just gonna say I had a conversation like this with my son the other day about creation myths. He's taking a mythology class in school, and one of the things that is kind of leaked into my writing a little bit, but that I think about a lot is, if you look at the creation myths of just about every culture, you have kind of this pre-creation order of gods, like the of chaos gods, the Titans or the Jotun or the like Tiamat. You have all these old gods that came before light, before order. Then you have this younger generation of gods which represent order. They come and they slay their parents and start order and creation and such like that. And if you look at Christianity, it has this kind of opposite thing, whereas the pre-creation God, like God, which is the only thing that predates creation, um, he brought about order, and then you have this. No, they're not technically gods, but like for the sake of like narrative and archetypes, the angels can serve as that sort of role. So then you have Lucifer coming and rebelling against his father, essentially, but failing, and he becomes the bad guy. And I just thought it was interesting that Christianity is the one version of that where the elder god ends up being the the victor and is viewed as the good one, whereas every other creation myth, it's always the elder god gets slain and they're evil and they're chaos. um, and I've just always been kind of obsessed about the difference between the older myths and Christianity in that one respect.
Yeah, they didn't go and eat him and turn his organs into different things or his bones into the
Yeah.
mountains and stuff. I see there are more of you out there. You got to comment. You got to comment if you're going to win something. There are 7 people watching us right now, and I only have 4 commenters. So say hi. I get something. It's gonna be
Hello.
good. Hello. We we were just having a discussion about like numerology and the number 3 and like all the trinities from how that covers pretty much every mythology as well. There's like the triple goddesses or the triple gods and 3 days for resurrection. So if we were covering Heaven's Gate.
Nice.
There we
William, I
go.
just mentioned you. I just mentioned
Hi,
the abyssal
William.
plane.
So William, you gotta talk to us about your book. You might win a book.
So triple goddesses.
Josh says, yo. Hey, yo, Josh. Yeah, but like the triple goddesses and then the 3 days for Jesus to resurrect and the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, so that there just seems to be 3 entwined in the Norns,
Yep.
well, anything like that, the Bridgets and but we were discussing Heaven's Gate and then we got completely off track with it, but it was because I didn't know they had a whole lot of stuff that I don't know how much you know about Heaven's Gate.
Not a lot.
Um, they're crazy. It was like the uncultiest cult.
All right.
It's her, Delphine. I'm loving the conversation. Yay! Good evening, Janelle. Good to see you. So they had like they were the cult that was like, no, we aren't going to force you to have sex. In fact, we prefer that you just abstain. And they'd go on like month-long cleanses or 3-month-long cleanses of this thing that was like you drank, I think it was a combination of lemonade, cayenne pepper, and maple syrup. It was
Interesting.
a big thing at the time. And so it was like following all the rules of a cult, but if you wanted to leave, that was fine. Everything. And they thought that they were going up to, they didn't believe in suicide, but they had to abandon their vessels so that they could go be aliens
Yeah, I knew it was
when
some
the hip-hop
alien
comment
stuff.
went by. But yeah, but then when they did pass, when they did all end up killing themselves, they were like it went over 3 days with like each day the amount of people who killed themselves was divisible by 3 and the other numbers all went with things as well, and he was the third to the last to die. And but it was crazy. We made t-shirts because Marshall Applewhite's middle name is Herf, Herff. And
Okay.
so we have Herf Nerder t-shirts now. If you want to go visit us on the merch, you should be able to get a Herf Nerder shirt.
Nice.
Yeah, just little things. And if you're just joining us, we got a couple people. This is what you can win by commenting. This is one of the things you can win. You get this. This is autographed by Curtis and Joshua and Luke, and it has all of this gorgeous artwork in here. You can get a chance at getting an ebook version of this, as well as an ebook version of just the regular, it's unsigned because it's really hard to sign things on the internet. Comment in our, say hi, do something so that you can be entered. And you'll also, everybody who wins is also going to get a copy of the first issue of the magazine. So the the electric version. Ugh. I I've
I
been
heard a
talking.
story. I don't know if it's true, but I heard a story that um, Dean Koontz was doing a signing, and he had never. It was right when Kindle first came out, and he had never seen one, and he just signed someone's screen on their Kindle. I have no clue if it's true, but
That would be hilarious.
right?
I mean, to be fair, I get everybody's just like, oh, you got to get an iPad. You got to have an iPad, and I'm like, so I can break it in a minute, you know. And Kindles, they do have a little thing where where the power source gets a little jiggly, and you kind of have to wedge it after a while.
Yeah.
But they're kind of disposable. as far as it goes.
Yeah, they're not like a $500 device.
Yeah, if they're on sale, you can get like the Kindle Fire. Oh, what I have? I have the HD 8. I think I got it for like $40, and it's lasted
Okay,
me 2 years.
that's
So
pretty good.
yeah, so if you don't want to worry about doing much else other than reading or watching a couple things on it, Kindles are a great way to go.
Yeah.
And if you have one signed by Dean Kuntz, then you know, then you're like, ooh, look at me. Um, so what have I missed? I feel like I've missed
um,
something
well,
that
we
we're
talked about
covering.
everything in the thumbnails there. Um, let's see. So I'm curious. So you said you had been reading The Envious Nothing, and
Yes.
you've read The Coffin Maker.
Mhm.
So did you see much of a difference between the stories in those two? As far as like, did you see like a jump really in? I know the Coffin Maker's not as stylized, or I mean, it's not as um, thematic or whatnot. But did you see any sort of like stark difference between the stories in those two books?
Um, I'm gonna go with that. It was mostly thematical. You have a very distinctive style with your. I mean, some of the stuff you go off on a little bit. It changed when you get into more erotic type of stuff. Your voice changes,
Okay.
I think, and then but
It's like
there
real life.
wasn't
I
that
get
much.
nervous.
Well,
Like,
no, you
ah.
just like talking about the tone, and all of a sudden the language changes just a little bit, but it's not bad.
Sure.
It's that's how people's brains work.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So so it reads really well, but yeah, I like 8 pages of notes from what I haven't finished yet, The Envious Nothing, because I thought I would have it done, and I did not. I had mic issues and some stuff going on, but I was writing down every page. I'm like, and they are so alone, and this is solitary, and this person wants it. Oh, I know one thing I wanted to cover.
Sure.
Um, if you guys aren't lucky enough to get the copy for free of The Envious Nothing, there is a link that I will put up that you had posted the other day to your story being narrated, the story Orphan,
Yes.
which is one of the
S-
stories in there, and
So
that was
Orphan
fabulous.
was narrated. Thank you. I've gotten that's probably the story that people have talked about the most from The Envious Nothing is Orphan. Um, and that was done by the Drew Blood podcast, and they're actually doing another story from The Envious Nothing. They're doing The Truth About Vampires. I think they're doing it this week, maybe. So and he's done a few of my other stories too. He's done Pinocchio and the Black Pantheon from my collection Black Pantheons, and the there's another one that I can't remember the name of. The Church of Winter's End or something like that. But that's also from Black Pantheons, and he's done a great job with all the stories of mine that he's narrated. Um, he's got a really cool like this deep cowboy voice, like,
Yeah,
so in on Orphan, he actually put in some music. He actually recorded a little bit of music for it, just a snippet. But it was kind of cool that he put in that detail because it is another a story that has a not as strong of a musical element as Blackheart Boys Choir, but it's definitely in there.
yeah. Unlike other writers, you actually write about something besides writing. You have other interests and hobbies. Because you're just like, there's this depressed author who couldn't get anything written,
Right,
and
yeah.
then this happened to them. Yeah, so I think actually, if I had to judge everything out of what I've read, I did really like Orphan.
Mhm.
Um, The Witch of Rock Hollow was amazing.
Thank you.
It's when you guys get there, it's the same story. told from multiple perspectives. It's like, is it okay if I tell a little bit about?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's somebody who's researching the town they grew up in, and they interview um, a I believe he's a construction worker, a police officer, and an ex-priest.
Yes.
Was I right with a construction worker or a carpenter of some sort?
Yeah. Yeah, I believe I think he's a carpenter. You'd think I would remember these details. I'm like, is he a carpenter or mechanic? I think he's a carpenter.
I know he learned how to use tools in it,
Yeah.
but so you see these all like, and the story is the town is haunted or cursed or something, and depending on which perspective you're going from, there's one person who is friends with the witch, and one person, the priest who is very, oh God, no witchcraft, and the law officer who's like, there are no monsters, there are no demons, people are shit, and that's what it is. And you get to go through and read it through all those different perspectives, and that was beautiful. And then the one that broke my heart the most is The Happiest Place on Earth.
I've read that. I wrote the story obviously, and when I went back to read all the stories to put the collection together, because I was originally published in a tribute to Frank Michaels Arrington, who was like a prolific reviewer and who died, and so that story was originally published in a book called One of Us, which was a tribute to him. And when I was rereading it to put the Envious Nothing together, like I found myself tearing up, and I'm like, oh my God, why would I do this? Like, why would I write something like this sad?
This is the most desolate thing ever, but it was beautiful. And
Thank you.
oh, I couldn't tell what's real, what's this, and then when the ending pops up, and you're just like, yeah, that just broke my heart when I read it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was expecting to have happen, but it definitely wasn't that. And but I mean, it broke my heart in a good way. It is such a good
Yeah.
story.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I can see why a lot of people go for Orphan, but
I have to give credit where credit's due. So on Witch of Rock Hollow, a big inspiration for the structure of that story came from the book Negative Space by B.R. Yeager. And that has multiple perspectives which guide you. I guess it's a novella. I don't think it's a full novel, but it's either a novella or a novel. And you have these different perspectives telling the story of this different person. There's this guy, Tyler, who's really the main character, but you never see it through his perspective. And I thought it was really cool the way that you would see this person from his girlfriend's point of view and his friend's point of view, and this person who wasn't friends with him. And you don't quite really understand what's happening because you're never in his head. You're just getting these different views from different people. So I thought that was a really cool structure, and I wanted to try to write a short story with that structure and that's why you never meet the witch. I mean, you meet her, but you never actually get into her head. The titular Witch of Rock Hollow. So I definitely borrowed that structure from B.R. Yeager. So credit where credit's due.
it reminded me of a book that I'm not gonna remember the name of it. It's like this thick, like, Stephen King met Tolstoy or something.
Yes.
And it's an occurrence of the something post, or it deals with like the first time people used blood transfusions. And it's written way back in that history, and it's like a couple of different perspectives going on. It um would it have been Oxford at the time, or were the different universities in London, and or by London anyway. It it was just very strange because everybody was trying to take credit from it, and their voices were very different. And but that was the best I could. I haven't read this other one. I'm gonna have to look it up later. And
It's cool. It's a weird book. It's definitely kind of out there. And if you want a book that wraps everything up and like you can walk away from it and say, okay, I understand everything that happened, that's not the book for you. It's going to leave you with more questions than it did answers. But I kind of like that. So
okay, any comics on the future?
So interestingly, I'm not working on any comics, but I don't know, like 10 years ago, maybe I was I was hired to write these presidential biography comics on Jimmy Carter and George H.W. Bush, and I wrote them and nothing ever happened or whatever. And I just found out like last week that they were published like a few months ago. So this is so off-brand for me and so out of my wheelhouse, but they're available through Tidal Wave Comics now, and yeah, it's stuff I kind of forgot about, and I just accidentally found out online that they had been published. It's in one in late 2022 and one in 2023. So
Well, that's a
um,
check for.
yeah, um, so that's the only comic thing I have going on right now, which is um, but I'd like to do more comics. It's a tough business. It's very expensive. Um,
Yeah.
and we've talked about doing some comic stuff at Weird House, but I'm trying to. I told Joe we should wait because it's a totally different business model. There are totally different considerations, and it can just get very expensive and it can be hard to make your money back. So I don't want to have him jump into anything that we're not quite ready for yet. But I would like to do more comics. I enjoy it a lot. So
Yeah, I tried to look into that, and damn, it when you going professional level, it's like
oh yeah.
uh letterers make $100 a page.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty wild how expensive it can get. Um, and when I was doing, I mean, this is forever, this is a million years ago at this point, but when I was doing comics, um, I wasn't paying quite professional rates, but I was still like, I was spending thousands of dollars for would have essentially ended up being nothing, like a 7-page pitch that I would send somewhere and it wouldn't get published. I just had thousands of dollars worth of art on my computer, and I mean, I still do. Of these projects that never got off the ground. Or if you're not paying somebody, you're still, if you're working with somebody as a partner, it's still really rough when you know this person you're a partner with. I mean, as a writer, I put in a fair amount of time, but not the levels that I have, that the artist has. I did this graphic novel called Mystima with Nico Leone, who went on to draw for Marvel and DC. He's been very successful in comics since. But right after we did Mystima, he had this comic he wanted to do, and he had kind of a rough plot in a world, and he asked me to flesh it out and then script it. And I wrote, I think, a 7-page script, um, just like an exciting scene in from the outline, and he drew it, and he spends like 8 hours like per page drawing the stuff. And then there was a colorist on board and everything, and then nobody got paid for this one, but it was just, there's so much time that went into it. And then we pitched it to Image, they didn't want it, and then Nico was like, well, I don't want to work with anybody but Image or Marvel or DC. So the whole thing got shelved. So it's just kind of heartbreaking when you put in that much time and energy, and nothing comes of it. So, but it's so expensive to self-publish. And obviously, if I was doing stuff with Weird House, I'm not self-publishing. I'm not paying for that. But I don't want to put the company in a position where we're not going to make the money on it. I want to make sure that we're ready to do that, and that we understand what we're doing, instead of just, hey, it'd be cool to put out a comic book.
Yeah, after seeing the art and stuff gone out, I'm like, I wonder if we could get Luke to do kind of a graphic novel, or okay, how about maybe a small picture on one page? 'Cause
Yeah.
because I'm like, I buy book covers when somebody's doing them and I have cash on hand, and it's like, okay, now that's sitting on somebody's hard drive with my name on it for the
Yeah.
next like 4 years until I can afford to actually, until I have enough content to put behind it. But I bought that book cover.
Yeah.
So, and
um,
whereas, yeah, self-publishing nearly ruined me.
yeah, it's expensive. Like I said, I had to stop because my wife didn't ask me to stop or anything, but it got to the point where I was like, I can't keep taking money away from my family to do this. Like I have a child and he needs clothes and to eat, and I just felt it got to a point where I felt very irresponsible. What is a going rate? Good price to offer the rights of art or pick. Well, I mean, it depends if you're commissioning artwork. Like if you're talking about like pencils or something for a comic, you're looking at professional rates of probably $300 a page. Not everybody's going to charge that because not everybody's at that professional Marvel kind of level. But my understanding, last I checked, it was about $300 a page for that. As far as like a book cover or something like that, once again, going rate can range. I mean, 300 is fairly average right now for like indie artists. What I'm seeing, if it's something you commission. But it depends on their medium and stuff too. Like Luke does digital artwork, and I'm not saying that to take away from it. I'm just saying it like it just Luke's process. I mean, he also does physical artwork, but for these book covers, he does it all digital, and his process is much quicker than if somebody was going like the Envious Nothing. That's an oil painting. So that the only reason that I have that cover, the Envious Nothing, is because I'm friends with the person who did it. They wanted to do this. They said, "Hey, can I do a book cover for you?" But that's an oil painting that took forever to do. So it depends on the medium. It depends on how sought after they are and their schedule. But like I said, 300 to 500 is kind of going rate for commissioned book covers, and at least in the indie world. But you said you bought pre-made book covers and stuff, and I know Joe bought a couple pre-made ones that were on sale from Rooster Republic for like $60 or something recently. And I've bought pre-made book covers from anywhere from like $40 to $100.
Yeah, mine wasn't on sale. I just got second dibs on it after the first person turned it down
All right, nice.
because it's a mythos based cover. It's got a bunch of Migos
Oh,
on it.
nice.
And so it's really cool. I just need it's going to house a collection. It's definitely built to be an anthology type of thing
Sure.
because it's kind of like they're guarding the doors to like this library type of area. So I'm working on getting everything together for that. And then I have to figure out like, okay, now what do I do with it?
Yeah.
I call Curtis and say, help.
Yeah.
I don't know what I did. Yeah, I'm all scattered tonight, guys, and I'm really sorry because I'm so glad that you're able to talk without much prompting.
I'm very good at talking. To a
And
fault.
yeah, I usually am. I had all these microphone issues and I was so worried because my neighbors were partying like right up until we started. It was like they somehow knew to stop then. But it was like, okay, there was an elephant and orangutan and somebody playing a guitar and jumping up and down, and I thought this was just gonna go crazy. So,
Sounds like a pretty good party.
you know, there was one guy who used to live above me, and in the bedroom area, I've seen the different layouts, and we're all pretty much laid out the same. It's not a very big building, but their bedroom was above mine, and I could hear them on a regular basis. And I mean, it was heavy, like it would shake the ceiling for me, which was the floor for him. And I think he was breaking cinder blocks with a sledgehammer. It like, honestly, that's the only thing I could correlate with, like, these, like, that's exactly what it sounded like, and so, these guys are usually pretty decent, they just play guitar and stuff every now and then, and the girl has a really pretty voice, and she plays the mandolin,
Oh,
but,
nice.
yeah, so, like, sometimes it's like, "Okay, I can just hang out and listen to my neighbors. They got a band going, they're pretty good," but not when it's, like apparently when the girl's out, the guys just are monsters. Um, God, there was something else I wanted to bring up with you, and I don't think I can. Well, we'll see if I can think about it while we figure out how to do the drawings. Oh, that was what it was. Um, so the drawing thing is new to me. All right, it's a newer feature, and go away. I want to go here. Okay. Um, and they don't put music to it. They set it up on StreamYard, so it's like, okay, you can spin the thing. It doesn't take out the name of the person who wins, though. So we might have to go a couple of times to get people who didn't already win something to win something.
That makes sense.
And I had been trying to set up. It's like it takes about 11 or 12 seconds for the whole thing to spin, and so I was like writing all these little jingles, and then I realized that I had to share screen, and I'd be like, share screen, show something, move something, and it would have just been a mess. But I even had like one song. I don't know if you're a fan of Vorduna or not, but
Wardruna, yeah.
uh, yeah, I had the is it Vinlava, the spin, spin, spin. It
Mhm.
anyway. I had this whole like thing set out to that because I was like, "Ooh, we've got the Norse thing," and then it's not happening now.
All right.
But
You might get copyright striked if you put it on YouTube, anyways.
oh wait, yeah, true. Okay, Raz didn't get pulled for SAS, but Raz, is that over now? Is Scurry Face done? Sorry, just there's SAS is the Scare Actor Spectacular that a haunting or a haunt group, Scurry Face hosts, and a bunch of haunt actors from across the nation. Um, well, and out of the, we have someone over from Scotland right now, vice versa, who participate in it, and they get put up against each other in rounds, and there's like meme attacks and stuff. And so we might want to wait a couple minutes actually to do the drawings because they got that done, and everybody who's a part of SAS, which is a large part of our community, would have been over there seeing if they were part for the next round of judging and meme offs and
Sure.
attacking. And
Well, we can
so,
talk a little
yeah.
bit more first.
All right. What do you want to talk about, Curtis? How are things
Oh,
going?
it's putting me on the spot. Pretty good. Um, like I said, I don't have too much new. I've been primarily working on the RPG lately, but I do think that when the second book in William Holloway's relay cycle thing comes out, I really wish I could mention the other authors, but I don't know if I'm allowed to. William, are you still watching? If you are, let me know if I can mention the other authors. Um, and then I have that Dark Tides thing. Um, but most of what I've been doing is the Weird House stuff, the business stuff, which has been interesting because I'm getting to learn a lot about publishing. Which was part of the reason I wanted to do that in the first place was just for the learning factor of it. Learning about dealing with printers and like the logistics of that, about distribution, um, different kinds of different ways to approach contracts with writers, and the best ways to promote books because I was promoting my own books before, but being able to do this in a more professional capacity for Weird House, it's really pushed me to find new ways to get our books out there and get my books out there. Um, and I think it's been very valuable in that regard. It's forced me to also kind of widen my own community and to seek out, not just the writers that I personally read or whatever, but writers who I think would be a good fit for the company, influencers who would be interested in our product, all sorts of stuff. It's been very good for broadening my horizons in a lot of ways, and I would advise anyone who's really interested in publishing or writing, if you can, even in a volunteer capacity, do something for a publisher or a magazine or anything like that. I think there's a lot to learn there. Um, Years ago, I was a volunteer on the Bram Stoker jury, and I learned a lot from that. And I think that there's just so much to learn about this business and this community. So I definitely think it's worth your while, I guess. But I guess
Yeah,
Sorry.
No problem. Yeah, the horror community is great. Raz was talking with me the other night about it, and we were talking about cons and how if you if you go to a comic con, there's somebody in a corner that does a horror comic or something. If you go
Yes.
to there's a little corner, but if you go to a horror con, there's everything. Like horror is niche for every other genre, and but it encompasses all of them. So
Yes. Well, it was I was at that Crawling Chaos Con yesterday, and it was the first one of these. It was kind of small. It was just really just a vendor room in this casino, and it was niche enough because it was, Crawling Chaos Con. It's gonna be it's gonna be cosmic horror, Lovecraftian kind of stuff. And there wasn't a huge attendance, but the people that showed up were all very invested in it. They all came to buy stuff, and like you said, there was obviously I was there is in a capacity for Weird House, so I was representing horror books, Lovecraftian books, things like that. But there were people who were doing kind of fantasy comics that had a dark fantasy overlap, or people who were selling kind of witchcraft things, or uh, different artists with prints and stuff like that. There's a guy who had some comic series of, it was like HP Lovecraft PI or something. So you have like this kind of noir crossover stuff. And yeah, you're right. There's this kind of, even though it's its own smaller niche, it has this kind of this way that it embraces all these other genres within it, and it's pretty cool. So, like I said, it's a really, I know I've said this. Everybody says this. If you're not within the horror community, you haven't spent any time within the horror community, you may not have heard it. But whenever somebody new comes in, they're always like, "Oh my god, the horror community is so nice. It's like the nicest literary community," and it's true. Like it's a very accepting, very warm community. And I was recently, I was at a science fiction kind of thing. It was my first time doing this, and it was good. It was a good time or whatever, but the atmosphere was so much different, and there wasn't the level of friendliness, and not that people were mean or anything, but it was warm by any means as any horror event I've ever been to. And I was a little bit taken by that because most of my time is spent in the horror community. Um, but even thinking back to my days in comics, when I think back to comics, I always had really good relationships with other artists. But I feel like with other writers, there was always this kind of cutthroatness in comics where it was everybody was fighting for the artist or fighting for the publishing thing, and you didn't really have that same sort of camaraderie with other comic writers a lot of time, at least in like these kind of indie levels, in my experience. And when I got into the horror scene, it was the opposite. Everybody just wanted to help each other. There was nobody was like posturing, trying to make themselves look like they were, bigger than they were, and nobody was trying to, outmaneuver someone else. And yeah, it was just, I don't know. It's a good community to be in as a writer, especially as an indie writer, I think.
yeah, we've had some issues with writers of other genres before. Um, I've noticed on uh I can't remember if you were in the were in the I can't remember which issue of Morlo from the Mythos
I
we
was in
had, but
two.
yeah, was that the one where there was like some gal who had put up a bunch of books. She had like 3 books ranked ahead of us, and we were in horror anthologies, and hers were A, not anthologies, and B, romance with no element of horror
I think so, yeah.
whatsoever. Yeah, and oh god,
Those
Stefan went
Amazon games
through.
happen a lot.
Yeah, we went through and like um reported he went through and reported every single one of her books that was wrongly categorized.
Yeah.
And I had her on Facebook, and I was just like, and I shouldn't have done it, but it was just like, you might want to talk to your publicist because they're putting your books in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
And and then she subscribed me to her somehow. So I was like, no, go
Interesting.
away. Shoo. We don't watch. If you were writing horror, we would embrace you, but you're not. You're taking our spots. That's no fair.
Yeah, that's been a problem that a lot of publishers have complained about, was the kind of the category games that people play. And I don't know enough. I should understand the Amazon ranking system better than I do, but I don't understand enough to see the benefit of it. I guess it's because maybe it's easier to rank in horror. It would be my guess, because horror is a lower selling category. So if you're writing something that's romance but has some dark elements, maybe you can get to that number one spot easier and kind of game the algorithm. But it also seems to me, if you're looking by category and you're looking in horror, you're going to very easily identify these books that don't belong there, and you're not going to have interest in them typically. So it just seems like a weird strategy to me, and it's, as you said, it's harmful to people who are actually putting out horror books. So
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do. I don't understand the algorithm either, but everybody, if you read something, and especially if I'm giving you something tonight, please go and review it.
please.
Give it some stars. Please write something. It doesn't have to be a novel. Just write something about it, what you thought of it, because that helps to get the books higher. And that's all we can do to fight these people who are trying to take the spots, is try to rank the book and see how many times you can write over the 400,000th edition of the release of the complete works of Edgar Allan Poe or something like that.
And I
But
will say that, like, I never expect anyone to leave a review. I'm not saying that anyone is, you know, is under obligation to do that, but sometimes like a single like review of an older book, or just that little bit of recognition can sometimes keep an author going. So if you really love what an author's doing, you really love what they're putting out, it could help them commercially too. It could help them financially. It could help their career. But I think in a more immediate way, sometimes with indie authors, especially, it can just keep them going. I have known a lot of guys who are talented writers who just weren't getting traction as they thought they wanted to, or they thought they should, who just kind of took their ball and went home. And if you really enjoy what someone's doing, it's good to let them know, because it can be really frustrating. Most of us aren't making money doing this. So a lot of us are losing money doing this. So knowing that someone appreciated what you wrote goes a really long way.
yeah, anybody new who might have dropped in from SAS, comment. Get your name in before we draw some names here. Um, I have this is the most ridiculous thing ever. Okay, I have just a couple of stories out in anthologies right now, and I have a bunch more works in progress and things to submit. But I have to deal with the state for some of my benefits because I'm on disability because of my epilepsy, and they ask for my royalties. And when you're one of like 13 or 19 people or something like that in an anthology, and you sell a couple of them on Amazon, and they don't pay you until you've accumulated at least $10 worth of
Yeah,
royalties.
I just say I just got my royalties from one of those books we were in together.
Hey, we did good in February. I was in both of them, and like 7 books sold.
Oh, honestly,
But it's fun
to get a
still.
royalty check for like an anthology is, is pretty cool, because you generally, it depends on how you're going into it, but generally you get paid on that one. We didn't get paid up front, but a lot of times you get paid up front and that's it. So it's kind of cool that there's this investment on everyone's behalf, that it's that you get in these royalties, and it's set up in such a way on this particular book, not to go too much into how the sausage is made, so to speak, but like it's set up through a third party thing that keeps track of all the royalties. So, you don't have to, there's no question of, am I getting the right amount of royalties? Like who's keeping track of the sales or whatnot. It's just very transparent, and it's, even if it's a $10, $10 into your account, it's kind of cool to see it.
Yeah. I just I couldn't believe I'm having to send this woman like she's like, "Okay, I need to see your royalties for the past, month." And I'm like, "Okay, let me go. Here's a screenshot. I made $1.25 last month,
Right.
estimated."
Yeah.
Ta-da! But as I was saying, it can be depressing and enforce imposter syndrome when you're pouring everything you have into something and people just don't seem to care to interact. Yeah, that's why love us. Give us a little pat on the head. You don't have to if the writing is utter shite, then it's utter shite and say, "Hey, maybe you should focus on doing something like spelling or, whatever." But in this case, it's not utter shite. It's really, really good. So, you need to go and give this man some likes and some reviews. And oh, I remember the other thing I was going to ask. This is going to be horrible because I didn't do my homework and I thought I did, but I might be
All
getting
right.
confused. Were you part of the We Are Portland?
We are Providence.
Providence, sorry,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So that was an interesting anthology. I'm glad you brought that up.
Okay.
So there's a group of horror writers from Rhode Island, um, and there's some weird horror political stuff that goes into this that I won't get into. But there's a group of horror writers that are all friendly and from Rhode Island, and um, I moved to a city right outside of Rhode Island. I'm still in Massachusetts, but I'm like, if I drive for 10 minutes, I'm in Rhode Island. So they let me kind of join this group, even though I'm not technically there. And they wanted to do an anthology. And instead of the woman who was running the group doing it and having to be responsible for all the royalties and, you know, all the stuff that goes with it, I suggested that we put it out through Weird House, and that would be a little bit cleaner. She wouldn't have to worry about holding on to people's money, et cetera, et cetera. So I talked to Joe at Weird House, and he said, "Yeah, absolutely." And we put together this really beautiful anthology. It was edited by Krista Carmen and Ellie Daniels. They did a fantastic job putting the stories together. The cover is by Michael Squid, and I think it's a really striking, gorgeous cover. He's also from Rhode Island, so all the stories have some tie to Rhode Island in some way, whether they take place there or they the characters from there, they reference it in some way, and it's a pretty um, eclectic collection of different types of horror. So you have some Lovecraftian fiction. Um, you have a war story in there, like a war horror story. Mine's kind of a more like just kind of a sad ghost story. And yeah, I thought it was very cool. There's some poetry in there too from Mary Robles, who's Joshua Rex's girlfriend, and um, yeah, I have a lot of friends in there, and I I'm very happy with. I'm very happy to have been a part of it. And We Are Providence is obviously a reference to, well, maybe not obviously, but on Lovecraft's grave it says "I am Providence," and so that's where We Are Providence came from. Was a reference to Lovecraft's headstone.
Nice.
Um, yeah, and it's done very well. It was made the preliminary ballot for the Bram Stoker Awards, didn't make the final ballot, and it is up for an Aurelius. I think it's called an Aurelius Award. It's some Australian award because Lorna Lane Daniels, she lives in Australia, so it's up for like a speculative fiction award in Australia. I think one of the stories from it, I don't think it made the final ballot, but it was on the preliminary ballot for the Stokers, and it's sold very well. Yesterday I was at a convention. I didn't bring it with me because Jason Parent, he's in there too, and he had a table, and there's too many Weird House books for one 6-foot table at this point. So I said, I won't bring Weird Providence. You can sell it at your table. And he sold out of them, everything he had there. So we debuted it at Necronomicon. We had a lot of copies, and we sold out of it at Necronomicon. And yeah, it was a very cool project to be part of. And yeah, Krista and Lauren worked really hard on it. So
You guys just have a great community out beyond the horror community, the New England area. All the people I've been getting to know from there, like horror and geek and just writing and stuff.
yeah,
All the creative people seem to get along great, know each other.
yeah, it's a small world. It is. I'll tell you. There's this writer, Michael Burke, and he hasn't published a lot of stuff, but he is in one of the Crystal Lake Dark Tides books, and he owns a comic book store called Kamikaze. And before he had anything published, like I knew him because I used to buy comics from him, and he would host events for because he's always been interested in the horror community. So he'd host events for like Christopher Golden and these different guys and stuff. So it's just interesting that this guy I used to buy comics from 20 years ago is now showing up in this series that I have a story into. Yeah, it's a pretty small community, and it does make it awkward when you don't get along with someone. I will say that, because that's going to happen, and everybody knows everybody, and everybody's for the most part friends with everyone. So when there are those personality conflicts, it can get a little bit dicey with that. But I think those are pretty minimal. Yeah, I can only think of like one person around here that I really have a problem with. So.
Give me his name after the show. I know some people out there.
Sure. Yeah. But yeah, and it's interesting too, because a lot of that I think comes from just social media and online, and people being performative online. And I'm not saying one person or another. I think everyone is kind of guilty of that. You know what I mean? You kind of amplify your loudest traits, or sometimes your worst traits on the internet, and or you trying to amplify a specific part of yourself that you're trying to sell, whether it's your edginess or your wokeness or your you know how mysterious you are, or whatever it is, whatever like that you're really tying into your brand. You tend to amplify that sometimes to a fault. And there's one author who I've butted heads with several times with online, pretty badly online. And every time I see him in real life, we get along great. Like if we're in a room together, it's fine. And it's interesting how much of a difference it makes to have that eye contact and be physically in each other's presence, and all the kind of internet nonsense melts away, and you can just be human beings.
Yeah. I get confused on things because I'm like, okay, I lost my Facebook account about a year and a half ago or something for like a year.
Okay.
I don't know what I did. I kept fighting it and they never told me what I did wrong.
Yeah, they
And
do that.
I sent in my ID, like 30 times and went over everything. Never got it back. I lost like 11 or 12 years worth of stuff, which was when I was taking care of my grandparents. It's sad. Lost all the pictures and memories from that. But to go on, finally got it back and I started rebuilding and I'm like, okay, first I'm going to hit my author peeps and go through there. And then who doesn't annoy me from high school?
Yeah.
Okay, there's those 4 people. Um, and then a couple other friends, and then it just built up from there. And so a lot of what my feed is either authors, or now that I'm part of this podcast community, and PBDC is very strong in the haunt community. I have a lot of haunters and stuff on. But so I have my page as a business page. I have the Delphine page as a business page, and I have my author page. And I don't know what to write because it seems like I'm promoting something on every single thing that I do. And I don't want to have the people that I mean, like I go through and like every single person's new book that's coming out, even the 30th time in a day that they've posted it, you know? But I
Yeah.
worry about like, okay, are people gonna just quit following me if that's all that they see?
Yeah,
Which is it's different than what you're talking about, but
no,
oh,
that's a concern though. Hi
hey,
Tia.
Tia.
Um, I think that I don't know. I've read somewhere that is a rule that you should only do like one self promotion for like every 10 posts or something, which I think that's a little bit much. I think that I don't think you need to be that rare with it, but I do think that it's important to do stuff that's not just selling. Um, I run the Weird House page, and I try to do every day like this, like your daily dose of weird, and I'll just find like a
Yeah.
weird picture or something like that, something interesting to put up, or if I see an interesting article on cosmic horror, stuff like that. I do a lot of things where I'll ask people questions, like, what are you reading? What authors do you think we should work with? Just try to get interaction, and then once again, interact with the people when they do comment. I think that's on any sort of professional page. I think that's huge. You can't just post and have people like and comment and ignore them. You have to engage with them, right?
Mhm.
Because essentially at this level we're not just businesses or whatever. We're not just this author business. We're not this podcast business. We're actual individual people doing these things, pursuing these things. And that's what makes us stand out in a lot of ways, is that we care enough to interact with the people who are engaging with us, and we want to, and I think that goes a long way. um, and it's interesting, as far as my personal page, I've stopped using Facebook for personal stuff in a lot of ways, mainly because of um, I I got put in Facebook jail for something. So I did like a list of bands I liked, and there was a band that I guess would be considered, well, I know would be considered problematic, but um, just listing the band's name got me put in Facebook jail, which wouldn't be bad, but it makes it so I can't run ads for any of the pages that I'm, a moderator for. So I couldn't run
Oh,
ads for Weird House, which is one of my primary jobs that I get paid for. So, so I tend to only post about like books and uh, art, or just very, very safe stuff now, because you don't know, like, I don't know why they took yours down in the first place. It sounds like you don't know, and that's the problem, because it's a computer doing these things largely, and there's no real recourse. You
yeah.
can't fight them. So for me, it's, I just kind of jumped over. I know a lot of people are unhappy with Twitter right now, but I started using Twitter more because I don't I can't afford to get Facebook jailed or kicked off of Facebook for saying something innocuous. Another time I got in trouble because I had done a blurb for Jason Parent's book, White Trash and Dirty Dingoes, and I got tagged for hate speech for mentioning the book, White Trash and Dirty Dingoes. um, so, uh, it was just, I can't chance getting booted for something innocuous.
I got put
Oh,
into Facebook jail because Peach was naked recently.
so
Yeah, I don't post politics. I don't there like, that's the thing that I can't get, is
yeah,
that I
I
really struggled to try to figure out, what did I do? It I post things about, like, happy things about my grandparents, or, sad things after they passed, and, like, what my cat's up to and what I'm reading, so, maybe it was, but I've learned that, when I'm viewing live streams like this,
mhm,
depending on the stream, I will go to YouTube and use an account on there instead of posting on Facebook, because I don't wanna get caught for some of the comments that I know that I'll not be able to resist making, that would
sure.
probably get me put in Facebook jail. Because except for losing my account, I've never actually gotten a warning or anything before.
Yeah, I never lost my account, but I have gotten a few warnings, and like I said, it seems for like fairly innocuous stuff. So I don't know. I have to use it as a marketing tool. Um, so I've kind of moved away from it as a personal platform. And like if I do, it's like a picture of a sunset or something like that, or a picture of a tree, something innocuous like that.
I don't know if you follow Stefan, but Stefan Lair, but like he posted up this thing about somebody was like cursing his family, like a witch kind of
Okay.
thing. And he got warned for it and like slowed, or I don't know how it all works, but he got a little short-term sentence in Facebook jail. And then he posted the post of him getting the sentence and got in more trouble for
Yeah.
showing that he got, and it's just like this tearing thing going on. It's like
This
the castle
inception of
that's ready to
Facebook
fall.
jail.
Yeah,
um,
it
so
was
I was
funny.
on, I think it was on Twitter the other day. I saw something, and it was like one of these. It said, this has been tagged for like nudity or something like that. So the image was all blurred, and I clicked on it, and it was a picture of like a Cheeto with a cat face on it. Like, so it's just fun. I do think a lot of it is just computers trying to police the internet, not doing a very good job of it.
Yeah, don't
So,
post on personal. Yeah, and I, my other thing is it's harder for me to decide who's gonna see what I see because since I got back, I just automatically went as a business account
yeah.
because you get at least a little bit more attention paid that way. And I found out that people hate it when you boost a post because there was around Christmas time for the month of December, I just posted up something. I was like, if you're a creator of any sort, own a local business or something, just go ahead and put your links below me. I'm going to boost this post through like the 2nd of January. And that way you can all get a little bit more, Merry Christmas. Here's a little bit of advertising for you. And I had a couple people that were putting in their things and popping up links and stuff and liking it. And then I had people who were like posting pictures of shit and things like that and saying like, you should have my Facebook page, so I'm going to do the same to you, you troll. And I'm like,
Oh, that's weird. I've never had that
what?
happen.
Yeah, I had no idea. Like when I've boosted other posts for things, and I don't do it that often, but for like books that I've been in, I've boosted a post on my author page and nobody said anything. But don't try to help anybody. God forbid.
That's too
You have
bad.
to you have to see something.
Yeah, no, I've in the past when I was running on my own page, I never found the boost post to be very effective. But I do them on the Weird House page, and I haven't had any negative feedback for the most part. Um, I think I had one ad that I ran that I got a negative comment about. But oh, that's my phone. Hold on, I gotta plug in my laptop. There we go. Um, but what I like about the boosted posts is that then it allows you to go and invite those people to your page. But if people are getting mad that you're spamming them, I guess they're going to get doubly mad if you invite them to like your page. But that
Well,
might be a
but
nice passive aggressive response to them.
God, that would be fun. Then I'd get banned and have to start all over again.
Right.
I've learned to like try to back everything up so that I still have it because I'm so mad. I had written some awesome things too,
Mm.
and like I cannot get. I will never own the just scathing review I gave to Portlandia on exactly how much I hated it. And it was like 2 or 3 pages long of just my utter disgust for the existence of it and that people would let it not only be thought of but progress beyond that and be put on television and then people would like it on top of that and just how I had no faith in the human race after that and all fun stuff. Don't have it anymore. Back up your Facebook.
The other thing, just talking about stuff like that, which I'm just a huge advocate of mailing lists in general. I think that it's if you're a creator, if you're any sort of, if you're trying to sell anything, you have a customer base, a fan base, you're never going to own your social media followers. You're never going to own your anything like that. Like you said, you lost your posts and everything. And they can change their terms of service at any point of time. They can go to business. They can. You have to remember that you're the product on social media. You're what's being sold. So as much as it is a good tool and an important tool, I think it's much more valuable to curate a mailing list and hold on to that, because we all everybody thought MySpace was going to last forever, and eventually Facebook and Twitter are going to go away. Like, they've already kind of aged out in a lot of ways. Younger people aren't really using them. Like TikTok's the big thing with young people or whatever. And like, that might not even be the case anymore because I'm old and I don't know what the thing is with them. Or my son's super into Discord, which isn't even social media. It's
I'm all about Discord.
So I think that all these things are going to either age out or they're going to change their terms of service. And some way, though, they're not going to be useful to you anymore. And if that's your whole marketing model, you're setting yourself up for failure. And yeah, strong mailing list, even though it sounds old fashioned, I don't think anything can beat that.
Yeah, I lost hundreds of followers, and I mean, I don't have a third of them back yet. Don't know. And then, hop over to the author page and I've got some new friends. Every time I get a new chunk, like every 20 friends send out again a request to, hey, like my author page. It says the same things that I do, only with author and my full name in front of it.
There you go.
So much fun. Okay, guys. Anybody got some last minute comments to throw in? Because I want to do some drawings because this is fun. We got some people on here. It looks like somebody new came in. If you're new, if you haven't said anything yet, get in a comment before I start the drawing. Just say hi if you want to. Because
anything.
We're gonna anything, because somebody just joined. Unless they're coming back. It could be somebody coming back. Internet goes up and down. They have Spectrum or something like that. Okay. It's the final countdown. I hate that song.
I do too. I hate it. I talk about it all the time whenever it comes on. So I have a question. Out of the Coffin Maker stories, what was your favorite story? It's all right if you say one of Josh's. I won't mind.
No, I have to pull it up because I need to look at the titles. So hold on, because I have it right. Nope. I have it right here. I don't remember titles and stuff right off the bat.
I understand. It's funny because when I was young, I remembered like every track off every record, and it's funny now because I've largely listened to stuff on Spotify, and with music that I didn't grow up with, I don't know any song names anymore. It's terrible.
I'm trying to remember because it and part of mine is epilepsy brain. I have to store everything and try to reread everything right when I do it. But Amber Heavens and Leaded Glass, I have a thing for things trapped in amber, and
Okay.
it's kind of a theme that's gone on for me that I really enjoy. So, and
that's actually Josh's favorite book and the favorite story in the book. We've been at some conventions and he's like, buy this book just for this story alone. like even if you just read this story.
The Governess one, though, is really good too.
Yeah, Josh is a fantastic writer, and that's a very cool story.
Oh, I forgot to ask beforehand. Did you have anything? Did you want to read anything tonight? Did you have anything, or
I can. I hadn't planned on it, but I definitely can.
If
Give me
you
1
have
second.
something nearby.
I have
Okay.
my phone. So let's see. Um, did I read anything on the other podcast we did?
Oh god, that was months ago, hon.
Okay. Let's see. I tend to read the same things over and over again, so
Well,
I don't
if
wanna.
you would have, it was all out of Blackheart Boys Choir.
Okay,
So
so probably not then. So we're gonna do, let's see. This one I do a lot because it's fun to do as a reading, and this is from Devil's Night, which we actually didn't talk about tonight, which is a little bit, it's older than these two collections, but came out after the original version of Boys Choir, the self-published version, and that's all short stories that take place on Detroit in Detroit on Devil's Night in 1987. They're all kind of interconnected in a Sin City-esque kind of way. So I'm going to read a short from Devil's Night if I can find it here, and it's called Fire Sermon, and it's my favorite thing to read at readings. Where's my Kindle app? Here we go. It should be in here. It's probably open to it because I read this at BosCon. Here we go. All right.
hey,
So this is called Fire Sermon. This also has illustrations by Luke Spooner. You can see this kind of cool illustration right there. And oh, you still
I just
there?
put
Okay, you
yeah,
just
just
put
in
me on.
case.
Okay, all right. So, Fire Sermon from Devil's Night. Brothers and sisters, we are gathered here tonight to join in solidarity against the encroaching darkness. We come together to take a stand, to reject the crime, the pain, and the sin of this world and its prince. We come together as one to embrace the light. Beyond these hallowed walls is a city burning. Greedy, weak-willed men scramble about for Satan's shallow offerings. They fight, steal, and destroy for scraps of cash, for reputation and respect, or for simple carnal pleasure. They light fires desperate for a warmth that they shall never know because they choose to dwell outside of God's light. But let's talk about fire for a moment, shall we? Fire is a tool of the Lord. It's a force of purification, from Michael's flaming sword to the ovens that kill the bacteria in our food. God hath rained it upon his enemies in biblical times, and Mother Church used it to purge wickedness and sin not so long ago. Before the lies of the modern age, before rationalist charlatans tried to erase the miraculous, we knew that a barrier of holy fire lay between the worlds we could see and heaven itself. So if fire is a holy thing, why would God Almighty allow the wicked to misuse it? Why would, in all his wisdom, would he allow these savages to use a sacred force to kill and destroy? Why would he let destitute men and women get trapped in burning buildings and allow firefighters to perish, choked by toxic heat and toxic smoke, or roasted by heat? Well, the first thing that you must remember, and remember this well, is that God makes no mistakes. Second, in his infinite grace, the Lord gave us free will just as he gave us fire. And why would he bestow such dangerous gifts? Because they are the keys that open the door between this hell we call earth, this imperfect creation of the demiurge ruled by the serpent of Eden, and heaven itself. But these keys, brothers and sisters, they must be used in conjunction. I spoke of the holy inferno that separates this world and all others in the night sky from the invisible and perfect. It is a pure flame born of God's incredible love, and no wicked thing can pass through it. Only those armored in faith can hope to walk through the burning gates of the Welkin and become one with the infinite. To wear the armor of faith, now that is a choice. And that is what I mean when I say that the keys to heaven, fire, and free will must be used in conjunction. That is why the vengeful and godless are burning to death across Detroit tonight, and why their deaths shall lead to oblivion, because they are not armored in faith. They play with holy fire as if it were a toy, or they have the hubris to presume they can extinguish that sacred power without seeking God's grace. But we, brothers and sisters, we know better, and that That is why we are gathered, to seek out the grace of God. Now I see some of you crying in the pews. I see some of you struggling against your bonds or squirming as Brother Holloway and Sister Sylvia approach you with the baptismal kerosene. But fear not, brothers and sisters, our journey is only beginning. Oh, I have such sights to show you. Our shared faith has brought us to this moment, to the celebration of light, into the precipice of the sacred inferno. Let the devils have this night. Let them have the whole damn world, in fact. We, brothers and sisters, our congregation, which has been so misunderstood and maligned by the unfaithful and the uninitiated, we shall be one with eternity. Clad in the armor of faith, we shall embrace the cleansing fire and step through the gauntlet of that step through that burning gauntlet, purified and worthy to sit at the table of the Lord. And that clocks in at 666 words. I can't hear you. Did you mute yourself?
Yeah. So that's lovely, and it's awesome that it clocks in at 666 words.
Thank you.
East Coast
Yes,
Haunted-
I have several books on audio on Audible. Thank you. Devil's Nights on Audible, Blackheart Boys Choir, The Devoured. It's a bad world, and Bad World 2. And The Coffin Maker is being produced as an audiobook. And my son just slid a note through the door, I think, or my wife. So yeah.
time to hurry up and get wrapped up.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, it's all those are on Audible. I think the only books, those who go forth into the empty place of gods is on there. So most of my stuff is on there, except for I think Black Pantheon's The Envious Nothing. Yeah, I
Black
think everything
Pantheon
else
is great, by the way.
Thank you.
Love that. Okay, so now we're going to do the giveaway tool. And we currently have 8 people who have spoken. You are all scrambled up in here, and I am going to attempt to get this right. Screen out. Present. Share screen. Okay, now we're going to see like some sort of Inception sort of thing going on here for a second. Because there we go.
All right.
Okay, now I'm going over here.
Oh yeah.
So you'll tell me if anything goes awry. The first 2 are going to be for the Envious Nothing, as well as the magazine. The second 2 are going to be for, and these are ebook editions for the Coffin Maker and the magazine. And the 5th one will be for the autographed awesome copy and the magazine. So here we go. And like I said, I don't have any music. Sorry, I'm working on it. It's just a matter, I need another box or something to push. So who wins first?
Somebody's got all runes for their name.
Jenny!
Hooray!
Jenny! Yay, Jenny. Okay. Now, there's no cheating, but it doesn't take the names out, so you can only win once. So if you win again, sorry, you're getting rolled over again. Okay. Oh, wait, I need to write down who's getting what. Bad host. Bad host. Well, bad host lost her pen, so she'll just watch the show again. Okay. Second Envious Nothing is going to go to, and Johanna's the one with, or Jonelle. Tia! Congratulations, Tia. The first e-book edition of the Coffin Maker's Book of Dark Tales is going to go to...
And Tia, there's a character with your name in the Envious Nothing.
Ooh. Tia, you don't get it. Sorry. You get the one with your name in it. This goes to Jenny. I'm going to start smacking the thing. East Coast Honors! Yay!
And in that reading I just did, I don't know if you guys caught the Brother Holloway. When it says Brother Holloway, though, that was indeed a reference to William Holloway, who is in here tonight.
Nice. Okay, second to the last drawing. This is the other Eve version of the Coffin Maker's Book of Tales. It's gonna go to Friday with the Library. Yay! Okay, and oh, where's the draw again? There we go. Okay, and now it is time for the big one. The autographed copy of the Coffin Maker's Book of Dark Tales. That is so hard to say, by the way. I just want you to know that. I keep flubbing it. Ta-da! No repeats. No! You try again. They need to fix this so that it takes out somebody's name if they've already won.
No whammy, no whammy, no whammy.
Chanel! Yay! Okay. Oh, wait. Now I have to get rid of that. There we go. Okay. If you are not friends with me on Facebook and you won something, congratulations to everybody who did. Oh. Okay, Jenny. Oh, Jenny and Friday are the same person. So which one am I redrawing for? The Coffin Maker's ebook? Now I'm all confused. Jenny, what did you win? What am I giving to somebody else?
Was Jenny the first one?
I think Jenny might have won one of each, so she can choose which one she wants, and
all right.
She just has to let me know. Okay, so you want to keep I feel like the game show host. You want to keep this or go behind door number 2? Okay, so you're keeping the Envious Nothing. Then we'll do one more of the ebooks version of the Coffin Maker's Tale. No whammies. Let's see if we can get somebody else something new here. Tia! No, you don't get a win again. Damn it.
Just likes the same people.
Yeah, I'm gonna find a better version. I thought this would work because it's right here, but I can share it. Yay! Raz, you get your own.
We can't see. The screen's not shared anymore, so we didn't see who won.
Oh shit! Sorry. Here, I'll pull up the edit stream. Here we go. It's still going. Yay!
All right.
Raz won. Okay, now we can remove it. Thank you for that. But yeah, give me either your email address or where you want me to send a code. And Chanel, I will need an address to have the book sent to you. So if you can get that to me, you can look up Delphine. Just go to PBDC. Actually, it's much easier. Delphine should be listed on there. And just send me your information there, or I will try to track you down. But we'll get that done within. Usually, I got it all done last time in the same night. But yeah, just let me know how to get a hold of you the easiest way. Well, I don't want to keep you because you're getting notes passed under the door. And I've had you for almost 3 hours. I kidnapped you from your family.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, and yeah, this has been wonderful. And I appreciate everybody who stayed with us for almost 3 hours and messaged and chatted.
Yeah, and if you're watching this later, look down, subscribe, like, do all of that. And where do you want
And still
people?
comment.
Yeah. Yay! Much love back to you guys. Oh, that's secret, huh? Where do you want people to get in touch with you at? Where's the best place for them to reach out and get your
So
attention?
you can reach out to me. I don't really use my professional Facebook page so much, but if you send me a friend request on my personal page, I accept just about everybody. You can find me on Twitter at C_Lawson, or you can email me at curtis@weirdhousepress.com.
All right. And one last thing, we do have something else. This is the Owl Light group, is all of these different storytelling podcasts that we do. But the one thing besides storytelling that we cover is helping people with when they're going through rough times with mental health. We devote one of our 4 Sundays out of every month to a show called The Buddy Check. And if you ever want to come and join us on a Sunday and you have nothing else to do and want to be a supportive person, we sit and just talk with everybody about how mental health stuff goes, and letting you guys all know to keep an eye out, and we'll let you know when the next buddy check is. I think it's going to be the 3rd Sunday this month around, because I have to go out of state for a little bit. But anybody who's been on the show is always welcome, and you guys out in the audience too, if you want to hook up with us for that, just let us know at pbdc.com.
Very
So,
nice.
well, thank you very much, and hopefully we'll have you back soon.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you so much.
Oh, no problem. And with that, guys, where'd it go? Oh, there we go. Good night.
Good night.
Steve Van Samson,
Curtis M Lawson,
Paul Christian Glenn, Joshua Rex, Raz, Rob Smith,